Admiral J1 stood tall on the bridge of the Galactic Command's main station. His eyes were fixed on the large screen in front of him. The screen showed the vast, empty space around them. It was a quiet day, just like any other, or so he thought. Suddenly, a loud beep filled the room. Red lights started flashing everywhere. J1's heart began to race. Something was wrong. "Admiral," shouted one of his officers, "we've detected an unknown ship entering our space." J1's face turned serious. "Show me," he ordered. The big screen changed. Now it showed a strange ship. It was unlike anything J1 had ever seen before. It was big, really big, and it looked powerful. "What is that?" J1 asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The officer at the scanning station was busy pressing buttons. His hands were shaking. "Sir, I don't know. Our database has no match for this ship design." J1 frowned. This was not good. The Galactic Command knew every ship in the known universe, or at least, they thought they did. "Run a full scan," J1 commanded. "I want to know everything about that ship." The room fell silent. Everyone waited as the scanners did their work. The only sound was the soft beeping of computers. After what felt like forever, the scanning officer spoke again. "Sir, the results are in. You're not going to believe this." J1 walked over to the officer's station. "Tell me," he said. The officer took a deep breath. "Sir, according to our scans, that ship, it's from Earth." A gasp went through the room. Earth? That couldn't be right. Earth was a small, primitive planet. Its people hadn't even left their own solar system yet. "That's impossible," J1 said. "Check again." But the officer shook his head. "I've checked 3 times, sir. There's no mistake. That ship is human-made." J1 felt his legs go weak. He steadied himself against a nearby console. If this was true, it changed everything. "Sir," another officer called out, "the ship is hailing us. They want to talk." J1 nodded slowly. "Put them on screen," he said. The big screen changed again. Now it showed the inside of the human ship. A woman stood there. She wore a uniform that J1 didn't recognize. She looked calm and confident. "Greetings, Galactic Command," the woman said. "I am Captain Sun Mai of the Terran battleship, Pride of Earth. We come in peace." J1 couldn't believe what he was seeing or hearing. Humans, in a battleship, here, in deep space. It made no sense. "This is Admiral J1 of Galactic Command," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Your presence here is unexpected. We were unaware that Earth had developed space travel technology." Captain Sun Mai smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that said, "I know something you don't know." "There's a lot you don't know about us, Admiral," she said. "But don't worry. You'll learn soon enough." J1 felt a chill run down his spine. He looked at the human ship again. It was massive. Its hull gleamed with strange metals. Weapons ports lined its sides. This was no explorer vessel. This was a warship. "Why are you here?" J1 asked. He was proud that his voice didn't shake. "That's a long story, Admiral," Sun Mai replied. "One that I think is best discussed in person. With your permission, I'd like to come aboard your station." J1 hesitated. Every rule, every protocol said he should refuse. This ship, these humans, they were an unknown threat. But something in Sun Mai's eyes told him that refusing wasn't an option. "Very well," he said at last. "You may dock at Bay 7. We'll send an escort to meet you." Sun Mai nodded. "Thank you, Admiral. We'll be there shortly." Pride of Earth out. The screen went dark. J1 turned to his crew. They all looked as shocked as he felt. "Alert all stations," he ordered. "And someone get me the Galactic Council. They need to know about this." As his crew rushed to obey, J1 looked back at the screen. The human ship hung there, a silent threat. Or was it a promise? Either way, J1 knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. Captain Sun Mai walked down the long hallway of the Galactic Command Station. 2 alien guards walked with her, one on each side. They looked nervous. Sun Mai smiled to herself. She was used to this reaction. At the end of the hallway was a big door. It opened with a soft hiss. Sun Mai stepped into a large room. In the middle was a round table. Sitting at the table was Admiral J1. "Welcome aboard, Captain Sun Mai," J1 said. His voice was calm, but Sun Mai could see the worry in his eyes. "Thank you, Admiral," Sun Mai replied. She sat down across from him. "I hope we can have a good talk." J1 nodded. "Yes, let's talk. First, I must ask, how? How did humans build such a ship? We thought your people were still, well, primitive." Sun Mai finished for him. She smiled. "We get that a lot." Sun Mai leaned back in her chair. "The truth is, Admiral, we've been watching the galaxy for a long time. We knew we weren't alone, but we also knew we weren't ready." J1's eyes widened. "You knew about us. For how long?" "Centuries," Sun Mai said. "We intercepted your signals, learned your languages. We saw how advanced you were. And we decided to catch up before we said hello." J1 looked shocked. But why? Why hide for so long?" Sun Mai's face turned serious. "Because we saw how your galactic command treats primitive species. We didn't want to be looked down on. We wanted to meet you as equals." Just then, a loud alarm went off. Red lights started flashing. J1 jumped up. "What's happening?" He shouted into his communicator. A panicked voice answered. "Sir, the human ship. It's impossible." Sun Mai stood up too. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Is something wrong with the pride of Earth?" J1 turned to her, his face pale. "Your ship, it just vanished." Sun Mai laughed. "Oh, that. Don't worry. It's just our cloaking technology." "Cloaking technology," J1 repeated. He sounded amazed. "But that's not possible. Our sensors can detect any cloaked ship." Sun Mai shook her head. "Not ours. We've developed technology beyond anything in the galaxy. That's why we're here, Admiral. We want to help." J1 sat back down. He looked tired. "Help? Help with what?" "The swarm," Sun Mai said. Her voice was low and serious. J1's face went even paler. How do you know about the swarm?" "The swarm was a terrible secret. A massive alien force that was eating its way across the galaxy. The Galactic Command had been fighting them for years, but they were losing." "We know everything, Admiral," Sun Mai said. "We've been fighting the swarm too, in secret, and we found a way to beat them." J1 stared at her. "You have? But how?" Sun Mai tapped a button on her wrist. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed a strange weapon. "This is the Sunburst," Sun Mai explained. "It can destroy entire swarm fleets in seconds." J1 leaned forward, his eyes wide. That's amazing. But why are you sharing this with us?" Sun Mai's face softened. "Because we're all in this together, Admiral. Humans, your people, everyone in the galaxy. The swarm threatens us all. We need to work together to stop them." J1 was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. "You're right. We do need to work together. But the rest of the Galactic Command might not agree. They're scared of you." Sun Mai smiled. "Then we'll have to show them they don't need to be scared. We're here to help, not to conquer." Just then, J1's communicator beeped. "Sir," a voice said, "the Galactic Council is demanding to speak with you. They want to know about the human ship." J1 looked at Sun Mai. "Are you ready to meet the Council?" Sun Mai stood up. Her eyes were bright and determined. "I'm ready, Admiral. It's time for the galaxy to meet humanity." As they walked out of the room, J1 couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and hope. The humans were powerful, maybe more powerful than anyone in the galaxy. but they were also here to help. He looked at Sunmei. She walked with confidence, unafraid of what was to come. Jed-1 realized that everything was about to change. The galaxy would never be the same. And maybe, just maybe, that was a good thing. Dr. Taeyong looked out the window of his lab on Earth. The sky was dark, filled with stars. He smiled, thinking about how far humanity had come. Dr. Taeyong, a voice called. He turned to see his partner, Dr. Yunji, walking towards him. The new engine test is ready. Taeyong nodded and followed Yunji to a large machine. It hummed softly, glowing with a strange blue light. "This is it," Yunji said, her eyes shining. "If this works, our ships will be able to travel faster than anything in the galaxy." Taeyong took a deep breath. "Let's do it," he said. Yunji pressed a button. The machine's hum grew louder. The blue light got brighter and brighter. Then suddenly, it flashed so bright they had to cover their eyes. When they looked again, the machine was quiet, but a small ball of light floated above it. "We did it," Taeyong whispered. "We've created a miniature wormhole." Yunji laughed and hugged him. "We did it," she shouted. "Now our ships can go anywhere in seconds." As they celebrated, Taeyong's mind went back to how it all started. Years ago, humans had found a crashed alien ship. It was old and broken, but it taught them so much. They learned about space travel, about other races, about the huge galaxy waiting for them. But they also learned about the dangers out there, about races that would see humans as weak, about the terrible swarm that was eating whole planets. So the leaders of Earth made a big decision. They would keep quiet. They would learn and grow stronger in secret. Only when they were ready would they show themselves to the galaxy. Taeyong and Yunji were part of that plan. They worked hard to make Earth's ships and weapons better than anyone else's. Now, years later, they had done it. Humans could travel faster, fight harder, and do things other races thought were impossible. Just then, Taeyong's computer beeped. A message popped up on the screen. He read it and turned to Yunji with wide eyes. "It's happening," he said. "The Pride of Earth has made contact with Galactic Command." Yunji gasped. "Really? After all this time, we're finally revealing ourselves." Taeyong nodded. "Yes, and they're using our technology. The cloaking device, the wormhole engine, everything." They watched a video feed from the Pride of Earth. They saw how shocked the aliens were at human technology. Taeyong and Yunji felt proud. All their hard work was paying off. But then the video showed Captain Sunmei talking about the swarm. Taeyong and Yunji got serious. "Do you think our weapons will be enough?" Yunji asked quietly. Taeyong thought for a moment. "They have to be," he said. "We've put everything we have into this. If we can't stop the swarm, no one can." Just then, another scientist ran into the room. "Doctors," he shouted, "you need to see this." They followed him to another lab. Inside was a big tank filled with a strange, moving black goo. "We captured this swarm sample last week," the scientist explained. "We've been trying to find a weakness. And look." He pointed to a screen. It showed the black goo breaking apart under a strange red light. "What is that?" Taeyong asked, leaning closer. "It's a new kind of radiation we discovered," the scientist said excitedly. "It destroys swarm matter completely." Yunji's eyes lit up. "This could be it," she said. "The key to beating the swarm once and for all." Taeyong nodded. He felt a mix of excitement and worry. They had revealed themselves to the galaxy. They had shown how strong they were, but now came the real test. Could they save the galaxy from the swarm? Could humans be the heroes everyone needed? As alarms started to sound, calling all scientists to work, Taeyong knew one thing for sure. Whatever happened next, the fate of the entire galaxy now rested in human hands. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with noise. Aliens from all over the galaxy were there, talking loudly. Some looked scared, others angry. In the middle of it all stood Admiral J1 and Captain Sunmei. "Order, order," shouted the head of the council, a tall alien named Gaisu. Everyone got quiet. Gaisu looked at Sunmei. "Now, human, explain yourself. Why have you hidden from us for so long?" Sunmei took a deep breath. "Honorable Council," she said, "we hid because we needed time. Time to grow, to learn, to become strong." "Strong enough to threaten us?" asked another council member, Hyunsuk. He looked worried. "No," Sunmei said firmly. "Strong enough to help you." Just then, the door burst open. A new alien ran in, looking very upset. It was War Minister Sanghoon. "Don't listen to her," Sanghoon shouted. "The humans are dangerous. We should attack them now, before they attack us." The room exploded with noise again. Some council members agreed with Sanghoon. Others wanted to hear more from Sunmei. J1 stepped forward. "Please," he said, "let's all calm down. The humans have done nothing to threaten us." "Nothing," Sanghoon laughed. "Their ship alone is a threat. It's more powerful than our whole fleet." Sunmei shook her head. "We don't want to fight you," she said. "We want to join you, to help you against the real enemy." The room got quiet again. Gaisu leaned forward. "What real enemy?" he asked. Sunmei looked at J1. He nodded slowly. It was time to tell the truth. "The swarm," Sunmei said. Gasps filled the room. The swarm was supposed to be a secret. Only top leaders knew about it. "How do you know about the swarm?" Gaisu asked, his voice shaking. "We've been fighting them too," Sunmei explained. "In secret, just like you. But we found a way to beat them." Sanghoon laughed again. "Impossible," he said. "We've been fighting the swarm for years. They can't be beaten." "They can," Sunmei insisted. She pressed a button on her wrist. A big screen appeared in the air. It showed the Pride of Earth fighting a huge group of strange, dark ships. The human ship fired a bright beam. The dark ships exploded. The council members watched in amazement. No one had ever destroyed so many swarm ships at once. "This is our sunburst weapon," Sunmei explained. "It can destroy the swarm completely." The room was quiet for a long time. Then Hyunsuk spoke up. "If this is true," he said slowly, "then the humans could save us all." Sanghoon shook his head. "Or destroy us all," he shouted. "How do we know we can trust them?" J1 stepped forward again. "I've spoken with Captain Sunmei," he said. "I've seen their ship. I believe they're telling the truth." Jaisu nodded slowly. "But can we risk trusting them?" he asked. "If we're wrong, it could mean the end of everything we know." Sunmei looked around the room. She could see the fear and doubt in everyone's eyes. She knew she had to convince them. "I understand your fear," she said. "But think about this. If we wanted to hurt you, why would we come here peacefully? Why would we offer our help?" She pointed at the screen, which still showed the destroyed swarm ships. "The swarm is coming," she said. "Not just for us, but for all of you too. We can fight them together, or we can all die separately. The choice is yours." The room was quiet again. Everyone looked at each other, then at Sunmei, then at Gaisu. Gaisu stood up. "We will need time to discuss this," he said. "Captain Sunmei, please wait outside. We will call you when we've made our decision." Sunmei nodded and left the room. As the door closed behind her, she could hear the arguments starting again. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. The fate of the galaxy now rested on what the council decided. Would they choose to trust the humans, or would fear win out? Sunmei took a deep breath. All she could do now was wait and hope. The Galactic Council chamber was tense. Captain Sunmei stood in the middle, facing the alien leaders. They had been arguing for hours about whether to trust the humans or not. Suddenly, alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed everywhere. "We're under attack," shouted an officer. "Swarm ships have appeared out of nowhere." The room erupted in chaos. Council members were shouting and running around, but Sunmei stayed calm. "Let me help," she said to Gaisu, the head of the council. "My ship can protect you." Jaisu looked scared, but he nodded. "Do it," he said. Sunmei tapped her wrist communicator. "Pride of Earth," she said, "execute Defense Protocol Alpha." Outside, in space, the human battleship sprang to life. It had been invisible, hidden by its advanced cloaking technology. Now it appeared, shining and powerful. The swarm ships, black and scary, were closing in. They fired their weapons at the Galactic Command Station. But before the shots could hit, something amazing happened. A shimmering blue shield appeared around the station. The swarm's weapons hit it and fizzled out. "Incredible," whispered J1. "Their shields are stronger than anything we've ever seen." But the Pride of Earth wasn't done. It started to fire back at the swarm. Beams of bright light shot out from the human ship. Every time they hit a swarm ship, it exploded into dust. Inside the council chamber, everyone was watching on big screens. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. "How is this possible?" asked Hyunsuk, his eyes wide. "One ship against a whole swarm fleet." Sunmi smiled. "This is just the beginning," she said. "Araya, introduce yourself, please." A soft, gentle voice filled the room. "Greetings, Galactic Council. I am Aria, the Advanced Responsive Intelligence Assistant of the Pride of Earth." The aliens gasped. They had never heard an AI sound so alive. "Aria is not just a computer," Sunmi explained. "She's a true artificial intelligence. She runs our ship, controls our weapons, and can outthink any enemy." On the screens, they could see Aria in action. The Pride of Earth moved with impossible speed and grace. It seemed to know where the swarm would attack before it happened. "This is beyond anything we've ever seen," said Gaiso, shaking his head in amazement. Even Sang-hoon, who had been so against trusting the humans, looked impressed. "With technology like this," he said slowly, "we might actually have a chance against the swarm." Sunmi nodded. "That's why we're here," she said. "To help. To fight alongside you. To save the galaxy." Just then, Aria's voice came again. "Captain, I've detected a swarm command ship hiding behind the third moon. Shall I engage?" Sunmi looked at Gaisu. He nodded, still looking amazed. "Do it, Aria," Sunmi said. Everyone watched as the Pride of Earth turned towards the moon. A huge beam of light, brighter than before, shot out from the ship. It passed right through the moon, not harming it at all. But on the other side, a massive explosion lit up space. "Swarm command ship destroyed," Aria reported calmly. The remaining swarm ships started to retreat. Without their leader, they were lost. In the council chamber, there was silence. Then, slowly, the aliens started to clap. Soon, they were cheering. Jaisu stepped forward. He looked at Sunmi with new respect in his eyes. "Captain," he said, "I think it's time we talked more about this alliance you mentioned." Sunmi smiled. She knew there was still a lot to discuss, a lot to plan. The war against the swarm was far from over, but this was a good start. As the council members gathered around her, eager to learn more about human technology, Sunmi thought about Earth, about all the hard work and secrecy that had led to this moment. "We did it," she whispered to herself. "We're not alone anymore." And for the first time in a long time, the galaxy felt a little bit safer. The Galactic Council room was quiet now. The excitement from the battle had died down. Captain Sunmi stood in front of the alien leaders, ready to explain everything. "You've seen what we can do," Sunmi said. "Now it's time you knew why we're really here." Jaisu, the head of the council, nodded. "Please, tell us," he said. Sunmi took a deep breath. "The swarm you just saw, that was nothing. It's just the beginning. She pressed a button on her wrist. A big map of the galaxy appeared in the air. Red dots covered a large part of it. "This is the swarm's territory," Sunmai explained. "They've already taken over half the galaxy." Gasps filled the room. The aliens had no idea the swarm was so big. "But how?" asked Hyunsuk. "We thought they were just a small problem." Sunmai shook her head. "The swarm hides its true size. It sends small groups to test new areas. That's what you've been fighting." She pointed to a part of the map that was still blue. "This is us, the free part of the galaxy. But look." The map started to move. The red area grew bigger. The blue area got smaller. "This is what will happen in the next 5 years," Sunmai said. "If we don't stop them, the swarm will eat everything." The room was very quiet. Everyone looked scared. "Is there no hope?" J1 asked softly. Sunmai smiled. "There is hope. That's why we're here." She changed the map. Now it showed Earth and the space around it. "Thousands of years ago, a group of aliens came to Earth," Sunmai said. "They were running from the swarm. They taught our ancestors about space and left us their technology." "But that's impossible," said Sangun. "We've been watching Earth. You were primitive until just now." Sunmi laughed. "We're very good at hiding," she said. "We made you see what we wanted you to see." She showed them pictures of huge underground cities on Earth, of giant space stations hiding behind planets, of whole fleets of ships like the pride of Earth. "We've been getting ready," Sunmai explained, "building our strength, learning about the swarm, and now we're ready to fight." "But why hide from us?" Gesu asked. "We could have helped you." Sunmai shook her head. "We needed to be sure we could trust you," she said, "and we needed to be strong enough to help you." She looked around the room. "The swarm is not like other enemies," she said. "They don't want to rule. They don't want riches. They just want to eat, to grow, to destroy." Sunmi pointed to the map again. A new color, green, started to appear. "This is our plan," she said. "We'll push the swarm back. We'll free the planets they've taken. But we need your help." "Our help?" J1 asked. "But what can we do against such a powerful enemy?" "More than you think," Sunmai said. She smiled at him. "Your weapons might not be as strong as ours. Your ships might not be as fast. But you know this part of space. You have brave people. And you have something the swarm can never understand." "What's that?" asked Hyunsuk. "Hope," Sunmai said simply. "The will to live free. To fight for your homes, your families, your future. That's something worth fighting for." The room was quiet again. But this time, it wasn't a scared quiet. It was a thinking quiet. Finally, Gesu stood up. "Captain Sunmi," he said, "you've given us a lot to think about. We need time to discuss this with our people." Sunmi nodded. "I understand," she said. "But please, don't take too long. The swarm won't wait." As she turned to leave, J1 stopped her. "Captain," he said softly, "thank you. For telling us the truth, for giving us hope." Sunma smiled at him. "Hope is the most powerful weapon we have," she said. "And now we have it together." She walked out of the room, leaving the council to make the biggest decision in the history of the galaxy. Would they join the humans in the fight against the swarm? Or would fear hold them back? The fate of everything hung in the balance. 3 days had passed since Captain Sunmi's big reveal. The Galactic Council had been in long talks. Now they were ready to give their answer. Sunmi stood in the middle of the council room. She looked calm, but inside, she was nervous. Everything depended on this moment. Gesu, the head of the council, stood up. The room went quiet. "Captain Sunmi," he said, his voice serious, "we have made our decision." Sunmi held her breath. She could feel everyone watching her. "The Galactic Council," Gesu continued, "has voted to accept the human offer of alliance." The room erupted in cheers. Sun Mai let out a big sigh of relief. She smiled at Jae-won, who was grinning back at her. But Gai-su held up his hand. The room went quiet again. "This alliance will not be easy," he said. "We have much to learn from each other, and we face a terrible enemy. But together, we have hope." Sun Mai nodded. "Thank you," she said. "Earth is ready to stand with you. Together, we will beat the swarm." The next few weeks were very busy. Ships from Earth started arriving. The aliens were amazed to see how many there were. Human scientists met with alien engineers. They started sharing their technology. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes they didn't understand each other, but they kept trying. One day, Sun Mai was watching a human teach some aliens how to use a new weapon. She felt someone stand next to her. It was Jae-won. "It's amazing," he said. "A month ago, we didn't even know humans could leave their planet. Now you're teaching us things we never dreamed of." Sun Mai smiled. "And we're learning from you too," she said. "Your knowledge of space, your different ways of thinking. It's helping us see things in new ways." Just then, an alarm sounded. But it wasn't a scary alarm. It was more like an excited buzz. "What's that?" Sun Mai asked. Jae-won grinned. "Come and see," he said. They ran to the main control room. On the big screen, they saw something incredible. A swarm ship was exploding. But it wasn't a human weapon that did it. It was an alien ship, using new technology that mixed human and alien ideas. "It worked," shouted an alien scientist. The combined shield breaker worked. Everyone in the room cheered. Sun Mai felt tears in her eyes. This was what she had hoped for. Different races working together, becoming stronger than they were alone. Over the next few months, more good news came in. The combined fleet, with human and alien ships working together, was pushing the swarm back. Planets that had been taken over were being freed. It wasn't all easy. There were hard battles, sad losses, times when it seemed like the swarm might win. But the alliance held strong. 1 year after the humans first appeared, there was a big celebration. The Galactic Council room was full of humans and aliens, all talking and laughing together. Sun Mai stood with Jae-won, watching it all. "Did you ever think it would turn out like this?" Jae-won asked. Sun Mai shook her head. "I hoped," she said, "but I didn't know for sure. I'm just glad it worked out." Jae-won nodded. "Me too," he said. "You know, when I first saw your ship, I was terrified. I thought it was the end of everything we knew." "And now?" Sun Mai asked. Jae-won smiled. "Now I know it was just the beginning," he said. "The beginning of something amazing." Just then, Gai-su called for quiet. Everyone turned to listen. "1 year ago," he said, "we faced our darkest hour. The swarm seemed unstoppable. But then, hope came from an unexpected place." He raised his glass. "To our human friends," he said. "To the Alliance. To the future." Everyone cheered and raised their glasses. Sun Mai felt a warm feeling in her chest. This was what she had worked for all her life. Different races, working together, facing the future as one. As the party went on around her, Sun Mai looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the swarm was still waiting. The fight wasn't over. But now, they had a real chance to win. A new era had begun, and together, they would face whatever came next.